What's up? We're back, and you are listening to the Dr. Mike Show, talk radio for the under 20 crowd. I'm Anika Noni Rose, and here's Dr. Mike.
Hey, thanks a lot, Anika. Hey, I was going through the paper this morning, and I was struck by this ad in the Personals. It says, single male, early 20s, looking for a smoke-free, funny, attractive, adventurous, single female of similar age. And it says, above all, must be highly trustworthy. Whoa. Hey, you know what? I found this really interesting because even above looks, this guy considered trustworthiness to be the most important quality he was looking for. I mean, you don't hear that too often. But when it comes down to it, without trust, we'd be in a boatload of trouble. I mean, you wouldn't have friends, we couldn't conduct business, you wouldn't be able to borrow money to buy homes or cars. We couldn't even trust that the food we buy is safe to eat. And that's to say nothing about traveling in airplanes. So I thought I'd devote the first segment of today's show to the subject of trustworthiness.
Sounds good to me, Dr. Mike. We have 15-year-old Lee from Battle Creek on line 1. Go ahead, Lee.
Hey, how can I get my parents to trust me more?
Wow, that's a pretty big question, Lee. Could you narrow it down a bit?
Well, see, I'm a sophomore. My girlfriend Jada is a senior. And my parents haven't been really happy about us going together because Jada runs with a pretty wild crowd. Anyhow, the senior prom's coming up and she wants me to go with her.
Sounds pretty cool to me.
Well, the cool stops there. Problem is she wants to go to some after parties and then to an early morning breakfast at IHOP. When I told my parents about it, they said no way.
And did they tell you why?
Yeah, they don't want me out all night on a date, period. I mean, that's all they'll say. I can't get them to give me any more of a reason than that.
And you're thinking it's because they don't trust you, huh?
Well, what else could it be? I mean, either they don't trust me or they don't trust her.
So what's your question, Lee?
What can I do? I really want to go. And I don't want Jada to think I'm some kind of a wimp.
Well, what are your options?
I was thinking I could tell my parents I'm going to spend the night at my friend Dave's house. They'd let me do that.
Hey, wait a second, Lee. Didn't you start this conversation by asking how you could get your parents to trust you more?
Yeah.
Well, tell me, how is lying to them going to build trust?
Well, they won't know it's a lie. I mean, they'll think I'm being a good kid, and then they'll trust me more in the future.
Oh, I see. Keep them in the dark so they'll see the light.
Yeah. Cool, huh?
You know, Lee, this reminds me of something. I've been traveling around the country collecting information for a book I'm writing called In Search of Character. And just recently, I had a conversation with some high school kids that I want to tell you about. Your mom and dad are going to be out of the house for the weekend. They told you, listen, nobody come over for the weekend, okay? I trust you. I know you're going to take care of yourself. Now, make sure nobody comes over. You're in a high school drama class. You got this person in a drama class, and boy, I tell you, whew, I mean, this is great. This is a hot person, okay? You want to rehearse a couple scenes with this person. You know that this person could come over to the house. You'd have the house all to yourself. I mean, the chances of them knowing are pretty slim, if none, okay? What would you do?
My parents seem to find out everything. It's like,
nosy neighbors.
I wouldn't do it because, I mean, if anything happens, it's Murphy's Law. I mean, if anything can go wrong, it will. And if something happens, you know, you're going to talk to somebody and somehow it's going to get back to your parents. And it's not so much that I wouldn't do something like that. It's just that whatever happens, someone's going to know about it that you don't want to. You can't keep secrets.
Okay.
If you tell anyone, it's no longer a secret.
Clarence, what would you do?
You just, I mean, you invite her over, and if anything happens, you deal with it later. But at that moment, you don't have to worry about anything else. So you live
Would you
for the
invite her
moment.
over?
Yeah, because I mean, you could die that night. You don't want to look back.
I'm going to die tonight, but I'm with her.
You could, I mean, you don't want to look back 30 years later and like all the stuff I could have done in high school or whatever that I didn't do. Because I mean, in the long run of life, so what if you're in trouble for a few weeks? I mean, for the long, long haul.
Your parents come home, Clarence, okay? You had this girl over. Your parents walk in the door. Hey, Clarence, we're home. Did you have a good time? Uh-huh. Clarence, look at us. Square right in the eyes. Clarence, was anybody in the house?
No.
Clarence, was anybody in the house?
Not at all, just me.
Can I trust you, Clarence?
Of course you can.
This is bad.
Gene?
I don't know. I mean, my parents will go out of town and they'll leave me at home, and a lot of my friends will have people over, you know, despite what their parents say, but I can't because I don't know about the whole trust thing, but I just wouldn't have any fun because I'd be too worried something get broken or grandma would ride by, you know, or something like that. So I just, personally, I
Oh,
just
hey,
wouldn't mess
Clarence, by the way, I got to tell you this, too. As Mom and Dad, guess what? We just went in the other room, and we found a sweater. And it's a girl's sweater. You don't have a sister, Clarence. Clarence, we told you not to have anybody in the house over the weekend. Clarence, do you want to change your story?
See, that's where more lies come in.
I was knitting.
Clarence. Clarence.
Well, at that point, you would
You're
say...
not a good knitter, Clarence. You and I both know it.
Yeah, well, you'd have to...
Yeah, well, what, Clarence?
It all depends. If your parents
Clarence. Clarence, look at me, Clarence. Were you lying?
I'm a drag queen.
were... Yeah. I
This is an extra small sweater, Clarence.
Yeah, I'd have to admit it at that point. I mean, you'd have to come out and tell the truth. If
Would
they
you?
Found a sweater. Yeah, I'd say I was lying.
What's that do between you and me? I'm your dad.
It
You're my
breaks the
son.
trust.
What's that do?
Breaks the trust.
Who broke the trust?
I did.
How do you feel?
I feel... I feel bad that I didn't have my father's trust anymore. But if I, in the first place, felt that I should have been allowed to have someone over anyway, I still don't see how I could be...
Listen to what you just said. I feel bad, but. You hear that?
Yeah.
But is the key word.
But is the key word.
Yes.
Because the minute you say but, you're coming up with an excuse. I feel bad that I broke your trust, Dad, but let me tell you why I'm justified.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that I felt bad
Yes,
that
you
I
did,
broke our
Clarence.
trust. No. I didn't feel bad that I hurt him. I felt bad that I don't have the trust. Not because I did anything. I mean,
So how important is trust between you and your parents?
it's quite important.
You made a choice to break it. Are you talking out of both sides of your mouth?
No, see, it's more important.
But at age,
This is where the word busted comes in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
at age 17,
What?
his parents should have be able to trust him to make his own choices.
Okay, let's take this, because I get this all the time, you know, I get this. I mean, I got 2 kids raising me, and it's like, well, you gotta trust me. You gotta trust me. We will trust you. We will trust you. Trust, let me ask you, Clarence, I'll stay with you. If I trust you as a father, is it based upon the choices I make or the choices you demonstrate?
Your trust in me is based on the choices that I demonstrate, but my trust in
Exactly.
you is based on the choices you do.
Exactly. So it goes
it's
both ways, right?
Yeah.
You tell me, but you gotta trust me. You gotta trust me. I will trust you. But your behavior and your choices you make outside of my vision will tell me whether or not I can trust you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But also, you have to realize that his choices should reflect you, because you raised him, you instilled in him those values that you have, which should reflect him. So I'm not real.
You know, I get that sometimes, and people say, you know, but wait now, you're the guy that raised him. You're the
You
father
have an
here.
influence on him.
You're the parent here. And you know what I say? Wait. When you were all little boys and girls, we had to kind of pamper you, and we had to powder your butt, and we had to do all different things to make sure that you got off to school and stuff like that. But at what point in time do we turn over the responsibility? At what point in time do we turn over the problems, the decisions? When do we turn that over to you? And when we do that, we turn over trust. And when we turn over trust, then it becomes your problem, your decisions, your choices. Does that make sense?
Did you get anything from that, Lee?
Yeah, it reminded me of this time I lied to my friend about why I flaked out on him. And then I had to invent another lie to cover up the first lie, and then another lie to cover up that lie. And before I knew it, I had a string of about 6 lies going.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
Did you get away with it?
No, I ended up contradicting myself because I forgot one of the lies.
Well, you know what Mark Twain says. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything else.
Right. And my mom would probably catch on right away. She's a walking lie detector.
But Lee, even if you could get away with lying to your parents, would you want to?
What do you mean?
Well, look at it this way. If their trust in you is based on a lie, then you really aren't worthy of their trust, are you?
And if you aren't really trustworthy, what does that say about your character in general?
So what kind of person are you, Lee?
Well, I think I'm basically pretty trustworthy.
Which means?
Which means I guess I'd better not lie to my parents.
Well, that's a good start, but what else?
What do you mean?
Well, don't you think there's more to being trustworthy than just telling the truth?
I'd have to think about that.
Good. And while you're thinking, let me tell you about another conversation I had on this topic of trustworthiness. Maybe it'll help you get the bigger picture. Help me out with this one. I'd like you to complete this sentence. You know someone is trustworthy when... You know someone is trustworthy when... What?
Someone is trustworthy when I can tell them all my secrets. They always be there for me.
Yeah, I know someone is trustworthy when they're dependable, you know? Trustworthy, you can tell them everything like she said. They're there for you.
I know someone's trustworthy when they tell me their secrets, because if they tell me, then I think I could tell them, and then it'll be like an honest thing, like you kind of have something on each other.
I know someone's trustworthy when I can tell them something without even thinking twice about whether or not they're going to go down a hole like 20 minutes later and say, hey, you know, this one said this, that, and the other thing. You know.
I know somebody's trustworthy when they have the same values and beliefs as you, because if you're a big mouth, they're going to be a big mouth. And you have values of you shut up and you're good keeping secrets, and you know those people have the same values of you, they're going to shut up and keep secrets. You know, treat others like you want to be treated.
I know somebody's trustworthy when over like a long period of time they demonstrate to me like that they wouldn't tell my secrets. They demonstrate to me that they'll be on time. They demonstrate that they're a reliable person. That's how I know they're trustworthy. It takes a lot of time where, you know, they can demonstrate all those things to you.
I think an important factor of trust is to be able to trust yourself. Like to trust yourself to be responsible, to trust yourself to have good work ethic. I think if you trust yourself to be these things, then I think on the whole you'll be a lot better person, and I think you'll just be like a good member of society. You have friends that you can trust and they can trust you, and I think that's a great thing.
Everyone has their own point of view of being trustworthy, you know? So it's like everyone can talk about what it consists of in their own view, but, you know, to do it, it's another story.
I wasn't always a trustworthy person, but I think that you learn a lot from experiences. Like after you can tell somebody's secret or something, you learn like how much trouble it'll get you into, that you know, you'll change your ways a lot, because I know that's what I had to do.
Say more. You said you were not a trustworthy person.
No, I wasn't. Like I would tell, like if
How do
somebody
you know you
told-
weren't trustworthy at one time?
Because somebody would ask me for help or something, and like, you know, like if I had to babysit my little brother or something, I would do little things that were not nice to him. I mean, I wasn't too trustworthy, but then I realized that, you know, the results of that weren't too good. Like I would lose friends like that and stuff, so of course I had to change my ways.
I think like the most important thing for me at least is to like to be like a John Wayne type character, you know, where he always shoots straight and tells the truth and rides his horse, you know.
Why is that important?
Well, you know, because like I see that as like, to be a man you got to do this, you know. Just tell the truth and everything will be good. If you're honest, at least people respect you for being honest. They might not like what you have to say, but you're honest, you know.
There's a name for that, like having a strong character. If you're a person that's very constant, it's like having a strong character. It's a person who handles themselves well, aren't influenced by the outside world in terms of what they know to be right, in terms of like morals. And that's very important, that a person can withstand, you know, pressures from the outside. Even though, I mean, it's called peer pressure or things like that, but it's more of a person that believes in themselves, a person that believes in whatever it is they stand for.
If your friends were here right now, how would your friends talk about you, and how would they describe you in this area of trustworthiness? If they were here right now and I said, okay, Joe was just in here a little bit ago, and I just want to know, Joe was talking about trustworthiness. Is Joe really a trustworthy kind of guy? What would they say, Joe?
Yes.
And why?
No, like, I don't know, because I said, I kind of believe in like the law of omerta. Like you don't really say anything, you know? Like, don't betray another's trust, otherwise they're going to come back and hurt you, you know? Because if you think about it, if people tell you something, they're on the line. If you're friends with them, you're going to tell them stuff. And if you come out with stuff against them, they're going to come out with stuff against you. And like, people are just going to draw sides. It's going to be like a big war between your friends. It's not going to be good.
You're also talking about dependability. That's what I hear a lot of here. Are you a dependable kind of person?
I worked during the summer down in the commodities exchange, and my boss, had to trust me. I mean, he knew my aunt for many, many years, so he did trust me. But I would be carrying around $30,000 in cash going to deliver to someone that was just like a cut out of a trade or something like that. And I, at any point on my walk to wherever I was going, I could open up the envelope and take whatever I wanted out of there. It would be that easy. I could just walk away with it. It was all cash. It was, something like that. And they had to be able to trust you. And, I thought I was very dependable. I always did what I had to do. I never touched any of the money, never even opened up the envelope.
A lot of adults are saying, I don't know if we can trust these kids. But then what you tell me is, hey, but wait now, we're even more trustworthy than some of these adults because we're independent, we have good work ethic, we have responsibility, and I'm going, are they just talking a good story? Or are they really...
I think that towards parents, you can build up as much trust as you want, but then as soon as you do one thing wrong, it ruins everything. So you could be working and doing all these things that you've been saying, great, but then once you make one mistake, that's the end.
When your parents ask where you're going, it's because they really do care, but sometimes it's just insulting. Sometimes, you're just sick and tired of people always questioning you. Why can't you be yourself?
Your trustworthiness is going to be called into question on a lot of different occasions while you're in the teenage years. But your choices will never lie to people. Your behavior will never lie to people. But boy, when you're making the right choices, you may go through some questions, you may go through some interrogation, you may go through some difficult situations, but the proof is in the choices you make.
So tell me, Lee, are you a trustworthy person?
I think so.
Yeah? Why do you say that?
Well, I keep my promises. People can rely on me. I make responsible decisions.
And you wouldn't lie either, would you?
Not as of about 9 minutes ago.
So how are you at keeping secrets, Lee?
Well, no, that's something else. I really noticed the way those kids talked about confiding in each other and not betraying a trust. And you know what? I can't think of a single time anybody told me something so private that I had to keep it to myself.
Really?
Really.
Huh. Well, do you ever tell your friends anything personal about you?
Not really. I'm not usually comfortable talking about myself.
Well, doesn't that pretty much put a limit on the depth of your friendships?
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. I've always been a loner type, but, I have to admit, it makes me a little jealous when I see people who have the kinds of intimate friendships those kids were talking about. I mean, how do they do that?
Well, if you're really interested, Lee, I recently visited a school where they have a whole program about forming trusting relationships. Would you like me to tell you about it?
Sure, go ahead.
Suppose you had a difficult problem and you really needed to talk to somebody about it. Who would you turn to? A friend? Your parents? A teacher? Well, if you were a student at Lowell High School, you might end up talking to Rosa Gonzalez. Rosa is a peer counselor in the school's peer resource program. Peer counselors are students who are specially trained to help other students deal with personal problems.
Sometimes it's about parents or teachers, school grades, friends, relationships like boyfriends and girlfriends. And sometimes it's just that they want to have somebody to talk to.
Sounds good, huh? But how could you possibly feel comfortable discussing your personal problems with another student, especially one who's not even a close friend? Well, according to Rosa, it all comes down to a matter of trust.
Trust is probably the basis for pretty much every relationship.
Why do you think that?
Because it allows you to communicate with a person. And when I say communicate, I don't mean like just social interaction. It allows you to tell a person how you're feeling, and it allows that person to listen to how another person is feeling.
Building trust seems to be a constant theme for peer counselors. This ROPES course, which is part of their training, is designed to give Rosa and her fellow peer counselors an intense workout in both trusting and being trusted.
I know that a big part of establishing relationships with other people is usually being the first one to trust someone. And I know as a peer counselor that it's hard to always, get someone else to be the first one to trust you. So you have to make the initiative, and you have to go out there and let them know that, you're trusting them. And in some cases, like the trust fall, you're actually trusting them with your life, because if you fall backwards, you can't see anyone and your hands are locked in a position where you don't move and your feet are together so they're not moving either. So when you fall back, you have no choice but to completely trust the people that are catching you.
So how does all this trustworthiness play out in the real world of real people with real problems? People like, say, Cornelius, who walked into the peer counseling office with girlfriend trouble.
I was like so infatuated with this girl, and she seemed to be just like, shoving me off. And so I talked to Rosa, and Rosa, it was kind of like a self-esteem issue. I talked to Rosa, and she put out some situations that she was dealing with, how they were kind of similar. And so that kind of gave us, something in common, and we started talking. And it was really nice talking to her, because since she did mention her previous problem, it made me feel like we had something in common. So it made it, like she understood me, not like she was just there listening to me babble, but she knew what I was talking about.
It's not like I'm going to be here and say, please give me all of your trust, and I'm not going to give you anything in return. It's an exchange of trust.
To have a real exchange of trust, you have to be willing to trust another person. And sometimes that's not easy to do. Take this challenge, for instance.
A couple of things we got to go through before we start. First of all, you got to remember to take care of your teammates and not let them fall. Some ropes are 3,000 pounds, some ropes are 5,000 pounds. I believe this is a 3,000 pound. Any of the equipment breaking is not an issue, really. Once you start climbing an event, you cannot come down the ladder. You have to be lowered down by the belay person. Sometimes people get on events and they freeze up for a long time. Try not to do that. Did I forget anything? Remember, it's all about having fun, you guys. All right, let's get started.
There was a ropes course event called The Perch, and it's this huge wooden tree pole thing, and you climb up a ladder, and you get about halfway up, and then the ladder ends. Then you have little wooden edges that are stuck onto the pole, and you have to place your feet on those one by one, and you have to actually stand at the top of the pole.
I gotta stand on it? I do?
Yeah. And it was really scary, because then there was a rotating disc at the top, and you actually had to place both feet on there and stand up on it and balance yourself, and I did that after a few minutes. And when I finally stood up, I looked down, which was probably a really big mistake, and I could feel the pole wobbling, and I felt like I was going to fall. I thought I was through with the event. Then they point to a trapeze bar, and they said, jump and grab onto it.
Don't hold on. Don't hold on to the rope.
And I was like, yeah, right. I cannot do that.
Trusting and being trusted. Even if it looks a little risky at times, there is a real payoff in the way it builds quality long-term relationships.
Oh, Rosa is my best friend, and she's really cool to talk to, because she's one of the few friends I have that actually keeps stuff I say to her, and not, I don't have to worry about telling her something and it getting around everywhere. She's like somebody I can confide in, and she's just really cool.
But friendships aside, why would anybody want to go through this just to become a better peer counselor?
This could easily be one of the most important classes you can take at, high school level. Because, this actually gives you skills that will help you in the real world with people, just... Break it down for me. Seriously, it's just...
So I counted to 3, and my hands grabbed on, but they slipped, and I thought I was going to fall, and I was, going to die. I know that I'm a trusting person. I know that for a fact, because I was able to do that and take a risk and put my trust into the person who was holding the other end of the rope. And I think just by having that experience, it's not that I've bonded or created this super huge relationship with another person, but I've opened myself up to that person.
Did you get anything from that, Lee?
I think so. I never thought about how my unwillingness to trust others could be a friendship barrier. But I know there have been times in my life where I've come right to the brink of discussing something really personal with a friend. But I always stop. Kind of like Rosa frozen at the top of that pole.
Yeah, Maybe you need to just take that leap like Rosa did.
Maybe. I'll think about that.
So what are you going to do about the prom, Lee?
Well, if I can't change my parents' minds, I'll just have to go home after the dance.
What about that wimp thing you were worried about?
Hey, even if Jada thinks I'm a wimp, at least she'll know she can trust me.
Well, I'd say she's getting a pretty good deal.
Okay, Lee. Thanks for the call. And please remember to drive safely.
You know, Dr. Mike, trust really is at the core of our relationships with our friends, our families, with everybody. Without trust, we have nothing. And I think our friend Lee is on the way to finding out just how true that is.
That's right, Anika. And in a world where trustworthiness is so often sacrificed for temporary gains, kids like Rosa and Joseph and Sahina are proof that we can be better than that. This is the Dr. Mike Show. We'll be back to take more of your phone calls after these special words.
Can you imagine what it would be like living in a world without trust, where suspicion, dishonesty, and betrayal were the norm, where we forever had to be on guard because nobody's word meant anything and people were constantly letting us down? Pretty crazy, huh? Wouldn't it be great if everyone we encountered could be counted on to tell the truth, keep their promises, and not betray a trust? These qualities are so important to a successful society that trustworthiness is truly a pillar of good character. For some helpful resources on trustworthiness, we invite you to visit our website at www.goodcharacter.com.